Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode of the podcast. And this week I'm talking about the destruction of the Black family. And I know that there is so much that can be said that I probably won't be able to fit into this episode, but this is a subject that certainly is one that bears revisiting over and over again. And in thinking about the destruction of the Black family, I'm specifically talking about a marriage. I'm talking about a man and a woman, a Black man and Black woman, marrying, starting a family, having children, and those children, being raised to have the desire for their own families, and they also get married and have children. And so the family unit has just been so obliterated for us, that is, specifically for Black people. And some of our people will point to slavery as the key moment of impact, if you will, for the destruction of the Black family, in which we know the history. We were not permitted to have formal marriages, and if we did jump the broom, we know that the sacredness of our ties were not honored. The sacredness of our bodies were not honored. These ties were broken anytime the slave master wanted to have his way with the Black woman, the slave, the girls, and even our boys. We know this history. But we still tried. We still tried to come together, to love each other. The thought that a child would be ripped from its parents' arms and sold away, the idea that a woman would be taken from the arms of the man that loves her and then used and abused by the slave master only to be returned back to that man, how difficult must it have been to be a Black man and endure the abuse of his woman, his girls, and not be able to do anything about it? How difficult must it have been to be a woman, to be a girl, and live without the safety of a father, a brother, a husband's protection? How difficult must it have been? And then, of course, we add into this awful equation the buying and selling of Black children, further breaking our familial bonds. The destruction of the Black family. Some point to feminism as contributing to the destruction of the Black family, and claiming that feminism suggested that marriage and the nuclear family specifically was a form of male domination and patriarchy, right? Some point to poverty. Jobs moving away from Black dominated communities as the contributor to the destruction of the Black family. Some point to the intrusive policies of social welfare systems in the damaging of the Black family. Some point to the criminal justice system and the criminal justice policies that lead to mass incarceration that took so many men out of the communities and housed them in prison warehousing. Our history here in this country, we can point to so many pivotal moments and say this contributed to the destruction of our family. And the culmination of all of that, of the policies, the culmination of the ties that were broken during slavery, the poverty, the import of drugs and guns into a community where the people are already damaged and living in poverty. And so what we know is that the Black family structure is broken. Now, do we care? Do we care about the destruction of the Black family? And you may say, look, I was raised by a single mom and I turned out fine. Well, maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. We have to define what is fine. What does it mean to turn out fine? And why are we being raised by single moms? Now, so often I hear people give credit to their mother in raising them, and then want to say, my mom was a single mom, and right, and so we give credit to moms who are single moms. And I'll say any mother deserves credit for raising a child to be healthy, happy, and productive. But there's a certain, there is a certain weight that's given to single mothers. And so because we say, well, I was raised by a single mom and I turned out fine, again, who's to say what is fine? Perhaps we can say, I survived being raised by a single mother. I made it being raised by a single mother. However, if part of us has been disconnected and we were not supported by the other part, the other half that was supposed to raise us, train us, nurture us, protect us, well, we may have survived it, but we definitely had something that's missing, and we have to acknowledge that. However, because we'll say I was raised by a single mother and I turned out fine, and we put a period at the end of that sentence, often we are not in the mode of promoting family. Well, I turned out fine, so now I can be a single mother, right? Or I turned out fine. I, as a man, don't have to raise my son or daughter that I have with that girl that I really don't like, I really don't care about, or she's okay, but I really don't want to marry her. Well, I turned out fine, so my kid will turn out fine. And so we do not promote marriage and family, which is the single basic unit to all civilizations. And our children are beginning their lives on a broken foundation. And so sometimes you may even hear our people say, wow, my child, he was raised by his mother and father. Like that's special, right? Like it's some virtuous or some victory that a child had its basic needs met. That's like saying, yeah, I have food and I have water. Well, you should have food, and yes, you should have water, because these are basic needs. And so a mother and a father is a child's basic needs. A family is the basic unit of civilization, and we are starting out with a broken foundation. And then our children exit our front doors into broken communities, and then they join up with other children that have broken foundations. We are really in a crisis position in the Black community. And I decided not to pull all of the statistics. I didn't think for this conversation it was really relevant to talk about the levels of, or the rates of incarceration for Black men, the rates of incarceration for Black women, the rates of single mothers or unwed births in the Black community, the poverty rate in the Black community, the home ownership rate in the Black community amongst Black people. I really didn't think it was necessary for this conversation to bring those stats, but you can, if you presume that we lead in all the bad stats, or we lead in the bad stats and we are behind in the good stats, then you're accurate. We do lead in the bad stats and we are behind in the good stats. And because we don't value what a family does for a child, then our children are being brought up in a disadvantage. And then sometimes because they're being brought up at a disadvantage and, they limped along in life, Well, now their children are going to limp along in life. And our children don't have to limp along in life. We must return to promoting families. Our children are being raised with just an acceptance that dad's not around, because my friend's dad isn't around, my cousin's dad isn't around, my sister's dad isn't around, because we have different dads. And it's just a normalized thing that we accept in the Black community. And, you know, the 70% or plus rate of out of wedlock births in the community just should not be acceptable to us. Our children are starting off at a deficit, and it's unfair because we're making choices that allow this, right? So in any other circumstance, if we are neglecting our children, the state can come in and say, hey, you're being a neglectful parent. Your parental rights are being terminated, right? But that's not happening. We are not giving our children the fullness of life that they can experience. Now, are you saying, Nora, that I should stay with this man that's abusive? Are you saying I should stay with this man who's dangerous? That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that we should be given thought to the choices that we make, because often as women, we're the martyrs or we're the heroes of the story, and the man is the victim, or excuse me, the villain, right? So we're the victim. The man is the villain, but we chose the villain, right? If he's a villain, you chose him. If he's a villain, sister, then you chose him to father your child. And if you say, well, I didn't plan to get pregnant, well, you didn't plan not to get pregnant. And I'm talking about in most circumstances, I'm generalizing. But what I'm saying is we have to be responsible for the choices that we make. Every Black man in the community is not a villain. So you can't tell me that there's only 30% of decent brothers in the community. And so it's only 30% of Black women who are having children in a marriage. You can't tell me that. I will not accept that statistic. Maybe you need to bring it to me. You can email me at Nora@NoraSpeaks and show me where I can find that statistic. What I'm suggesting, though, is that we are not making good choices. And so we're not making good choices on the front end. Then on the back end, we're being the hero at the end of the story when our children say, my mom raised me as a single mother. Well, if she might have made a different choice, she might not have had to be a single mother. And look, for the sisters who are single because things didn't work out, perhaps, the brother passed away early. Some mothers are raising children while their husbands are away serving in the military. I know we have all of these circumstances, right? But those are not the key circumstance that leads to us leading in unwed births, in single marriages, single parent households. We must return to valuing marriage and family and give our children that foundation. Just think about how painful it was to experience chattel slavery here in America. And even in spite of the difficulty in that experience, men and women still tried their best to come together in a family unit, even under the stress of chattel slavery. Now you mean to tell me that you're not wearing shackles, he's not wearing shackles, we're not confined to, quote, plantations, and we are deciding not to come together in marriage? Something that they forbade us to do because they understood the power and the benefit of marriage. And now we fast forward, we're so progressive that we dismiss it and say it's unimportant. We have to return to our foundational values, and family and marriage was certainly one of our foundational values. The key component, the key unit of a civilization, of a state, of a community, are families, and ours are broken. And that's not fair to us, and that's not fair to our children. So we have to do better and encourage family. Encourage family. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Until next time, stay in peace.
We were brought here as a piece of property. And to keep that piece of property, it is to not allow the property to know the value of the property. What I mean by that, if you had known the history of yourself, you would not have been made a slave. And you won't be a slave now if you have a knowledge of yourself. It's hard to enslave a person that have equal knowledge with you. You just can't do it. And so this knowledge of yourself is the thing that will free you from what you have been suffering from.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, noramahammed.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.